Hello everyone, it's Miss LaChance back here with another video. I am in a different setting today. I'm filming this video from my mom's house. And today we are going to be reading chapters 31 through 35 of our read aloud book, The Wild Robot Escapes by Peter Brown. And today we will be reading chapter 31 through 35, like I said, in chapter 31 is called The Campfire. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and jump right into the book. Wood smoke billowed up from the backyard and drifted across the farm. Roz was building a campfire for the Sharifs. In her old life, the robot made fire by cracking special stones together until she got a spark. In her new life, she used a lighter. The family sat around the rippling flames and gazed up at the stars. The dog stretched out on the warm ground. The robot was standing nearby, but her thoughts were far away. Her computer brain was scrolling back through the memories of campfires and of stargazing with Bright Bill. Fluffy white marshmallows were skewered onto the ends of sticks and then roasted above the flames. The children laughed as their marshmallows caught fire. They liked them charred on the outside and gooey on the inside. Ooh, go ahead and make a connection symbol if you can relate to this. I love my marshmallows charred on the outside, completely burned till they catch fire, and I love that gooey inside. On the other hand, their father preferred his evenly browned. When the Sharifs weren't stuffing their mouths, they were chattering happily. "That's the space station," said Jaya, pointing to a tiny dot that was slowly moving through the sky. "I can't believe people live there too." So remember, this book takes place in the future, and it's sounding like Earth isn't as sustainable to live on. So it's sounding like some people are living up in a space station in the sky. "Animals live there too," said Jad. "The station has a farm. We should bring our cows up and show those space farmers how it's done." "I think our cows are perfectly content right here on Earth," said Mr. Sharif, "and so am I." Once the marshmallows were gone, Jaya and Jad snuggled up with Oscar, stared into the flames, and asked their father about the old days. But the children were just too cozy to stay awake for long, so Mr. Sharif spoke to Roz instead. "We made campfires all the time when I was a boy." The man poked the coals with his marshmallow stick, and glowing embers floated into the air. "The whole family would sit around like this, telling stories. We had a nice life here. But then my brother and sister moved to the city, my parents got old, and everyone expected me to take over the farm. I couldn't run this place by myself," he went on, "so I hired Jamila. I did the farm work and she managed the business. We made a good team, and then we fell in love. When Jamila was pregnant with Jad, we bought a few auto machines to help out. Then Jaya showed up and we bought a few more. If I'd known those machines would be the death of her." The farmer's voice trailed off. Roz wanted to know more about Jamila and about Mr. Sharif and about the rest of his family, but a normal robot wouldn't ask personal questions, so she just kept her questions to herself and dropped another log on the fire. Chapter 32 is called The Old Barn. Long ago, Hilltop Farm was a very different place. The original farmers grew vegetable gardens and fruit orchards, and they raised chickens and sheep and goats. The farm had changed a lot since then, but there were signs of its past. Low stone walls lined some of the fields. A rusty tractor sat in the weeds, and hidden within a densely wooded grove was the old barn. The barn hadn't been used in generations. Over the years, trees had quietly grown up around it and moss had spread across its roof. But the barn was still strong and solid, and Roz wanted to take a look inside. The big barn door screeched along its rails. "Hello?" said the robot, peering into the darkness. "Is anyone here?" Here we have a picture of the setting that the author was just describing. It's looking like Roz is peering inside of this barn. A mouse squeaked and scurried out of sight, and then Roz had the barn to herself. She stepped through the doorway and switched on her headlights. The vast interior was crisscrossed with thick wooden beams. Stairways and ramps led up to lofts and platforms. Lanterns hung from hooks on the wall. Old-fashioned farm equipment lay here and there. The barn still had the faint smell of farm animals, even though none had lived there in ages. A large trunk sat on a work table, covered in dust. Roz carefully opened the lid and examined its contents. A collection of farming magazines, a pair of leather gloves, a pencil nub, and then she noticed a small journal. The name Cyrus Sharif was elegantly scrawled across its cover. The pages were filled with its handwritten notes and hand-drawn diagrams about raising livestock and growing crops and building barns, about working the land with the help of strong animals and simple machines. Cyrus Sharif had also jotted down his thoughts about the long history of farming. He believed that the modern world owed its entire existence to ancient farms and when early humans first started growing their food. Those farms were small and primitive, but they supported villages, which became towns, which became cities. The writings were so wise and insightful that Roz read the journal from cover to cover. By the end, she almost felt as if she knew Cyrus Sharif, whoever he was. The journal was a treasure, and she tucked it into a pocket of her tool belt for safekeeping. I'm wondering if this might be a foreshadow for what's to come in the future. I'm wondering if Mr. Sharif might notice this journal in her side pocket. Give me a connection symbol if you're able to relate to this prediction I'm making here. Chapter 33 is called The Autumn. So they've passed spring, summer, and now we're entering autumn. The autumn colors were sweeping across farm country. The lush greens of summer faded to reds and browns. Crops were harvested, leaves fell away, and the landscape turned stark and gray. On Hilltop Farm, the cows were grazing on what remained of the pasture grass. While the herding machine hovered nearby, the field machine was preparing the fields for winter. The drone circled the farm several times a day, but there was less to report in autumn. Although Jaya and Jad were busy with school, they always made time for Roz. The children never grew tired of listening to the robot stories, and they never grew tired of sharing their own. The bees and the mice and the deer and the frogs and the raccoons and the squirrels and the snakes were all getting ready for cold winter. So too were the birds. Oh, so it's looking like it's almost migration season for the birds. The owls spruced up their nests. The crows stockpiled acorns. The swallows were still swooping over the farmland, but they would soon be leaving for winter. And any day now, other migratory birds would begin passing through on their long journeys to the south. Chapter 34 is called The Delighted Geese. A flock of geese had just landed at Hilltop Farm. It was the first flock of the autumn migration. The geese floated on the pond, cleaning their feathers and nibbling on weeds, but they all stopped what they were doing when Roz waved and said hello. The robot never forgot a face, and she was certain she didn't know any of these geese, but they seemed to know her. Before she even introduced herself, the lead goose squawked, "Is your name Roz?" The robot stared at the goose. "Yes, it is." "And you can speak the animal language?" The answer was obvious, but Roz politely said, "Yes, I can speak the animal language." "Do you by any chance have a goose for a son?" "Yes, I do," said Roz. "His name is Brightbill." At that, a voice blurted out, "The stories are true!" And suddenly the flock was smiling and fluttering over to the robot. When the commotion settled down, the leader explained, All along our migration, we've heard rumors of a robot who can speak with animals, who has a goose for a son, and who is trapped on a farm. That sounded ridiculous to us, but here you are." The flock was absolutely delighted to meet our robot. They lounged around the pond for a couple of days, chatting with Roz whenever she came by, and they continued flying south to their wintering grounds. Another flock of geese arrived, and the same thing happened all over again. Roz welcomed them, they were delighted to meet the legendary robot, and then the flock continued south. Then it happened again and again. Before long, the coming and going of delighted geese was just another part of the robot's autumn routine. Straggling behind the others as usual was Wingtip's flock. When Roz saw them splashing onto the pond, she felt something like hope that they might have news of her son. Sadly, the geese had no news to report, and as the flock took off and left Roz behind, she began to question whether she would ever see Brightbill again. So it seems like Roz is really holding on to this hope here, but as time is going by and as more flocks of geese are crossing by the farmland, she's losing more and more hope. Chapter 35 is called The Memories. So I'm wondering if Roz will start to reminisce on all of the memories that her and her son Brightbill had made on the island. Roz still dreamed of escaping, of going home, of reuniting with her son, but her dreams were starting to feel impossible. She was losing hope. Was it time for the robot to accept her new life and forget about her old one? Forget. Roz was troubled by that word. You see, her computer brain remembered every detail of her life on the island, and it hurt to think that she might never make it back there. However, the robot could always forget. She could erase her own memories. It would be like they never happened. The heaviness she now felt would now vanish. But without her memories, who would she be? No, Roz wanted to remember her old life, which was good because someone from her old life was about to reappear. And I am going to leave us off there on a cliffhanger. Chapter 36 is called The Unusual Flock. And here's a picture, a sneak peek of what we're going to be reading in the next video. All right, my friends, so I hope you enjoyed this read aloud video today. I had a blast, and I'm going to leave you off on a cliffhanger so that you're looking forward to watching tomorrow's read aloud video, where we will be reading chapters 36 through 40. Thank you again so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye, friends.